Hello and welcome to 5 Minute Math. Today for our number talk, we are looking at the fraction 34/69ths, and we are deciding mentally whether it is more or less than 1/2. That means we're not going to convert these to decimals, and we're not going to use cross multiplication. What we do want to do is reason about it. So one way we can do about that is to look at that fraction 1/2. What I like to do here is I like to think, well, if I double 1/2, I know that I'm going to get 1 whole. 1/2 plus 1/2 makes 1 whole, or in this case, it looks like 2/2, but we know that whenever we have a fraction with the same numerator and denominator, that equals 1 whole. So then my question is, what happens if we double this other fraction, 34/69ths? We know that when we double something, we can just add that number to itself, right? And when we're adding fractions, we need to have the same denominator, but when we add, we only add the numerators. The denominator is simply naming our unit. So we're adding 69ths to 69ths, so that makes sense. So our answer is still going to be 69ths. That's the name of the unit. But we're adding 34 of them plus another 34 of them, so 34 and 34 is going to only make 68 69ths. Now, how does that help? Well, I know that if I wanted to make 1 whole with a denominator of 69, I simply need to write the same number in my numerator, 69 69ths. That equals 1 whole, just like my 2 halves. So when I doubled 1/2, I got 1 whole. But when I doubled 34 69ths, I got a little bit less than 1 whole. It's not quite the same because it's 1 less than my 69 69ths. Which means I'm thinking that 34/69ths is going to be less than 1/2 because it didn't quite make a whole when I doubled it. But let's see if there's another way to think about this. What if we were to take 69, and what if we were to come up with half of it and just compare those two? Well, that's going to be kind of difficult because it's not an even number. But I can reason it out if I think about 3 fractions in a row. And I don't know off the top of my head what half of 69 is, but what I can do is I can think of the 2 fractions to the side of it, 68 and 70. What is half of each of those? Well, half of 70 is going to be 35, and then half of 68 is going to be 34. So just like this number 69 is in between 68 and 70, half of that is going to be between 34 and 35. You see, that's where it becomes tricky. There are no whole numbers between 34 and 35, but we can get into the decimals. And we can say, all right, 34.5 or 34.5 is half. So I could say 34/69 is still going to be a little bit less than that 34.5, because if you want to add a 0.0 there to make them both go to the tenths place, right, you can see the 5/10 is going to be greater than that 0/10. So that also lets me know that 34/69 is going to be slightly less than a fraction that's equivalent to 1/2. So whichever way we think about it, we can say that 34/69 is less than 1/2.